every time. All right,
Uh,
well, you're just tuning
Peace
in,
and love.
everybody. I am here with John Saja, and if you don't know, you should know that he is the author of this amazing Beatles book, Calling Me Back Again, the Beatles Records at 50. He is our resident Beatles expert slash fanatic, which is a great thing to be. And we are here today to have a discussion about, if you haven't heard, I don't know what planet you're on, there is going to be a new slash reworked, unfinished, now finished Beatles track. I believe they're still going with the original title of Now and Then. And John, I would like to kind of just set the table with this, and then just you can run with it. And so I'll take it back to 1994
Uh-huh.
when Lennon was getting inducted in the Hall of Fame. Yoko Ono met with Paul McCartney,
Hmm.
and she gave him two cassettes of John Lennon's demos,
Hmm.
and they actually literally in John's handwriting said "for Paul" on the cassettes. And one
Wow.
of the cassettes had what became "Free as a Bird" and "Real Love." The other had "Grow Old with Me" and "Now and Then." And we know that the first two songs ended up on Anthology 1 and 2.
Hmm.
I believe "Grow Old with Me" ended up on the John Lennon tribute anthology in the 90s called Working Class Hero. I believe that was originally covered by Mary Chapin Carpenter. And then maybe 10 years ago, then Ringo himself covered it. So that has had an
Wow.
official release, as it
Great.
were. And I believe Paul played on that on Ringo's album. But now and then there's been some trepidation. I know Harrison wasn't a fan, but I will hand it over to you, and if you want to
Well,
fill in those details and run with it about the anthology there.
I'm thinking, are you sure you're not the resident Beatles expert, Eric? Because the bunch of stuff you just said, there was a handful of things you said that I didn't even know. Like I didn't know that he had written for Paul on the cassettes. That you sort of blew my mind with that one, but that one got by me. Uh, but that's a beautiful little tidbit there. And I didn't know about how George. Apparently, George wasn't crazy about it, which also is a little side note, viewers of Make Your Own Fun. Eric and I discussed in a past episode how he also didn't want Carnival of Light, which is probably the last great nugget that's still unreleased. FYI, sort of side note there, but and Paul sort of hankers for it to be in the public domain a little bit because it ups his cred as the avant-garde guy, because Lennon
Right.
typically gets that credit, but McCartney was like sort of ahead of Lennon because Lennon was like a homebody even in the mid '60s, and McCartney was the one that was going out to the independent films and making the tape loops, and he was like the first one to be doing that. So he's always been a little adventurous. Paul has in terms of these experimental things. Um, and the whole bit about the AI, which we should mention that he put out a statement a couple days ago, and I'll read it for you. It was
Okay.
like via Twitter, uh, and here's what he said. Been great to see such an exciting response to our forthcoming Beatles project. No one is more excited than us to be sharing something with you later in the year. We've seen some confusion and speculation about it. Seems to be a lot of guesswork out there. Can't say too much at this stage, but to be clear, nothing has been artificially or synthetically created. It's all real and we all play on it. We cleaned up some existing recordings, a process which has gone on for years. We hope you love it as much as we do. More news in due course, Paul.
I
Okay,
love
so
it.
I wanted to get that out of the way, and I don't do an authentic McCartney voice. Sorry. If you're sitting there thinking, what kind of Paul impression is that? Like, I don't try to sound like them.
The
Anyway,
best impression, and you can you have your own version, but the best impression I think I ever heard was Dana Carvey doing an impression of both Paul and John on their first visit to America, having their
wow,
first snack. And he says something like,
wow.
John, you've got to try this. It's a Snickers bar. It's got so many bloody peanuts in it. It's like there's a little man just pushing peanuts through. And then said John, snatches it away. He says, well, of course it does, you stupid git. It says packed with peanuts. What do you want? It's America. They've got bloody everything. Too many peanuts.
Wow.
But that's Dana Carvey does so many
Wow.
great impressions of people. It's not surprising.
That's great. I feel like I saw that one time 30 years ago, and you just blew the dust off that memory there. But that's a great one. That's a great one.
um,
Uh,
I was gonna delve into this and say I have not heard, maybe you've heard, I have not heard if Jeff Lynne, who produced the anthology sessions, is involved. I know he was involved 94, 95, 96.
yeah.
I know I've seen quotes from Jeff Lynne where he just said, I think that they worked a day, maybe 2 days on it, and Harrison was just over it because I guess the consensus was the quality of the demo was, in Harrison's words, was crap. It was, McCartney saw that there was a great melody. I think McCartney says he feels that Now and Then has a great chorus and a good verse. No, I don't know if that means that maybe Lennon just did like a vocal guide, and it was kind of like,
Mm.
well, if I ever, Paul will know what to do with this kind of thing. But I'm
Yeah.
hoping, and I did, thank you for sending me that kind of fan thing on YouTube where someone put together kind of like an amalgamation of maybe this is what it would have sounded like in the mid 90s. And I want to get your take on this because there was a criticism I remember at the time, not so much Real Love, because that was pretty much a straightforward John Lennon ballad, which turned out really, really well.
I
But
agree.
Free as a Bird got a lot of slack, I want to say, from for people criticizing Harrison, saying his slide guitar was a little bit more akin to what he had done in the Traveling Wilburys. And I remember at the time thinking, and I mean,
Yeah,
people
I
are
know.
allowed
Yeah.
to age, their styles change, people pick things up. So when you sent me that, I guess you'd call it an upgraded demo, it's not an official release.
Uh,
Not only did Harrison's playing remind me of Free as a Bird and the Traveling Wilburys, but Ringo's drumming reminded me a little bit of Traveling Wilburys on Now and Then. And I'm trying to remember who played on those albums. Was it? It wasn't just Ringo. It was like Jim Keltner, maybe
oh, you're
on the
thinking.
Wilburys.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I would say Keltner. Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
right. That
So
sounds
it
right.
was very like when you sent me that, I went, oh, I don't know if Ringo's imitating himself, imitating Keltner, or that was just what Lynn did, or maybe it was just what this
Yeah.
person did themselves. But what's your take on
Well,
that?
a few reactions I have to that. Everything you said there. One is I wonder what was going through George's head when he was like being snooty about Now and Then, because if you listen to pretty much everything the man put out after All Things Must Pass, like it's not exactly like tearing up the airwaves with amazing, this is great compared to Now and Then. You know what I mean? Like I
Right.
just wonder what's the arbiter of taste in his brain that's saying I don't like Now and Then, but I like all of my stuff that I put out. So there's that question. As far as Free as a Bird goes, I remember that one to me was a little weaker than Real Love. I would agree with your general take there. And I remember like the bridge of Free as a Bird. Whatever happened to the life that we once knew, which is taken word for word from Remember Walking in the Sand by the Shangri-Las did it and Aerosmith covered it.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember when that came out on first listen, I'm like, they just and you have to keep in mind that this is Lennon at his piano, very informally onto a cassette tape, and he was not intending that to be the finished.
No, it's
He
just
in
a
his in
guide.
his
It's
I
a thing, just
I
getting
could
it down.
practically guarantee that he would have rewritten those words,
Oh, for
knowing that it's
sure.
from Remember Walking in this. He would have rewritten the lyrics, but they didn't have that luxury because on the original tape, well, actually, they did have the luxury because they used Lennon's voice in "Free as a Bird" in the verse, but then for the bridge, McCartney sings it once, and then they bring it back again. Harrison sings it a second time, they could have rewritten those words and taken the edge off of the fact that that it was lifted from Remember Walking in the Sand, but they didn't do it. But anyway, and that would have been like ironic, right? Because the writers of Remember Walking in the Sand could have come and litigated whatever happened to the life that we once knew. It's right. Those words and melody is right out of that song. And I just
Well, you
wonder
know
if anything
what
ever
though?
came
I'm
of
gonna
that.
jump in and say that what I've noticed over the years with, because you can't copyright a melody, you can't copyright a chord progression, you can copyright words and sheet music, I believe.
Ah,
But it's the passage of time, because it's always suspicious when somebody comes out of the woodwork, and I'm just gonna reference the most famous proven wrong plagiarism case of all time, which is the band Spirit trying to say that their song was, or that Stairway to Heaven ripped it off. And it's like, there's a ghost of a chance that maybe Jimmy
yeah,
Page heard something, but those songs are so different. And
yeah,
here's the passage of time argument that never fails, which is number one, the guy, I can't remember what his name was, Randy California or
yes,
something like
that's his
that,
name. Yep,
that
yep,
wrote the song. How big Stairway to Heaven was then and it still is now,
yeah,
why didn't he, at the entire time that his band was together, didn't he say, like, how dare those guys? And now and then he passed away, and all of a sudden it's a litigation thing with the
yeah,
lawyers because they smell money. So
right.
I hate to say it, but I feel like what you're talking about with Free as a Bird, if something was gonna happen, it would have happened in the 90s, I think.
Yeah. It's just curious, yeah, because it is like all of those things that you mentioned come together, melody, lyrics. But anyway, I'm glad, that would have just been an ironic thing to happen at the end of George's life in particular to get
Yeah.
sued again, but uh that is so funny. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Now and Then. At first I was like underwhelmed, like there's something like because Free as a Bird is already kind of a slow number. Real Love had some pep to it, and now with Now and Then, it's back down to like low energy sort of. But I mean, if Paul and Ringo are in their 80s now and stuff, so they shouldn't try to sound like a rock and roll. I don't know. What do I know? But
But it could be one of those things. Maybe I'm wrong about this. I think I read that Real Love was sped up a little bit because
oh
Lennon's
yeah,
voice wasn't that high pitched even in the late 70s. So,
yeah, definitely was. And
so,
by the side note, there, Robert Plant used to do that a lot. I mean, he could hit some high freaking notes, make no mistake. But if you listen to a song like The Ocean, for example,
yeah.
like you could tell that uh, they slowed the tape down, and he was able to sing at a comfortable level. And then when you put the tape back up to speed again, it creates this chipmunkish effect. That's how the chipmunks' voices are recorded. They slowed the tape super down, and then people at regular spoke regular, and then they sped it back up, and whatever that effect is, it makes it sound higher pitched. But
But
the
it's interesting
Ocean's a
that
good
you bring
example.
that
Yeah.
up because if you, I mean, I wasn't an adult in the 70s, but I can only imagine if somebody's listening to the Houses of the Holy and you're talking about that effect, and then they get physical graffiti and they're like, why does this guy's voice suddenly sound all gravelly and a little deeper
Oh
and a little
man,
bit more
yeah,
like rustic and belting it out rather than like, like just like these impossible chipmunk notes like you're talking about. But all right, well, let's
yeah,
get
yeah,
back to the Beatles.
yeah.
And
Go for it.
I I want to pick your brain about some of this stuff because,
Yeah,
and some of it's not fun stuff to talk about, but it begs the question, why and why now? Because, Harrison passed away 20 years ago. So what makes this, was the AI technology to extrapolate the vocal away from the piano and the guitar only perfected recently, like what Peter Jackson did with that crazy scene in Get Back with Lennon and McCartney talking and the microphone was hidden in the flower pot, and you're going like, how did they isolate this? This is mind-blowing. Like,
yep.
what bastards they hide those
Crazy, right?
microphones everywhere to get every little audio snippet. So is it because now only now are they able to construct the perfect Beatles song.
Yeah, I think yes. The short answer is like the technology being what it is now, there's things they can do. Another part of my answer to that is going to be that every handful of years, while Paul is still alive, he's going to want to do something to keep the Beatles on people's minds, to keep them sort of up on the wall, to forward the legacy. Because to him, the Beatles' legacy is a living, breathing thing, and he's going to want that to be alive. Obviously, it's going to be around after his death. It's which is kind of like the amazing achievement. I mean, how many of us can say that? You know what I mean? Like, to that degree, you know.
Oh yeah.
But he is, and you know, like he even calls it a final Beatles song, which is sort of like a grandiose, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but it's a very grandiose thing to say, you know. And he, so that's his low key way of saying this is an official Beatles release and it's sanctioned by us. And these are things that there's like kind of a schedule, you know, like if you trace through the years, like, you know, in 1987 when those first four CDs came out, you know, and that was a huge deal. And then fast forward through the anthologies and then the Across the Universe movie and then the Love Show and Cirque du Soleil, you know, and every handful of years, like then Rock Band was huge, like, you know, whatever that was, 2011 or whatever year that
Right,
was.
right.
Uh, you know, every handful of years, you know, year to 2 to 3 years, there's got to be something that he puts out there to accentuate the Beatles' legacy, that they're still around, that to redefine it, which I've always been approving of him trying to redefine and keep them relevant in a modern age, and go hand in hand with the technology, whether it's video games or studio trickery or you know, now this AI stuff. Like he wants people to think of the Beatles side by side with modern stuff, and he doesn't want them to be relegated to like some dinosaur from 50 plus years ago, you know.
Right,
So
right.
that's my take. Yeah.
Well, let me piggyback on what you said there. There's some interesting things and talking about relevance. And one of the things I thought about, like, why now? You and I have talked before about McCartney trying to stay away from the solo re-release greatest hits stuff because it's like, well, if you're gonna do that, put out, you know, a greatest hits compilation of everything from like Flaming Pie to now. And but it's like, well, will people only buy the songs that they've heard a million times? I don't think that's necessarily true. I think people are always hungry for new music, but
Mm-hmm.
if I'm going to be a negative Nelly about it a little bit, part of me wonders. We were talking about legacy here.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if he came face to face with himself at some point after McCartney 3 came out, and he, you know, he makes so much ungodly amounts of money just from touring. He doesn't need to put out new music at this point. But is there this part of him where he's saying to himself, is this my last best chance at a number one song in America? I mean, just to boil it down to brass tacks, you know.
Yeah, wow. So do you think that he is concerned about things like number ones at this point in his life and career? That's
Maybe,
yeah,
but to piggyback also on what you were saying as well about keeping the Beatles current and relevant,
yeah,
and this
yeah.
is something you and I have kind of talked about off camera too, which is, well, why just the one song? Why just to put that thing out and then a week later it's kind of like streaming services now with TV shows. If you dump the whole season at once, people will binge it over a weekend and then they're on to the next thing. But if you do what some of the more popular shows do, like your Stranger Things, your Mandalorian, your
Marvel, the Disney Plus Marvel shows do it this way. They drop
yeah, which
one
is
per
one
week.
episode a week,
Yeah, yeah.
which made me wonder, like, and I know we've talked about this before too with well, I mean, would you put it on like another re-release of like Beatles one to repackage and resell that, or do you do, I mean, there's no real B-side thing unless you're making a physical album
Yeah.
to put
Speaking
out,
of
and I don't
that,
think the younger generation is going to go for that unless they're hipsters, and getting into records. But
Yeah, it's funny how vinyl's making a comeback of sorts, but I don't know to what degree. And I love that you mentioned B-side, because if they, I wanted to mention too, I'm glad you said that, because Lennon, in the last couple of years of his life, he filled a few tapes with a lot of great song ideas, and there's more out there that he did other than those three songs we've been talking about. So if they wanted to there's one called "A Friend of Dorothy's" that he did, which is really, really a good upbeat song. It's got different sections and it's really good. They could they could have treated that one and put that out as like the B side.
right.
It could have been like Now and Then, backed with BW, "A Friend of Dorothy." So that would have been freaking cool, like just like, I don't know. But again, I don't know how vintage they're looking to be with this forward looking modern vibe they're going for.
That's the only
Yeah.
thing I'm really worried about in terms of them just kind of well, not unceremoniously. There's going to be a marketing push, and we probably haven't seen the likes of this for a long time, probably not since Beatles one. But
Yeah.
I mean, it almost, and I know as a fan, we always want more, more, more. And we were talking about this the last time you were on Make Your Own Fun, and I was thinking like, has the crud been scraped from the bottom
Yeah.
of the barrel? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
are we now like chipping into the wood of the bottom of the barrel, or it's
That's
like,
good. That's great.
we
That's
were talking.
funny.
You mentioned Carnival of Light, and I'm thinking, well, that would be a hell of a B-side to have this.
I know.
However long, Now and Then might end up being, 4.5 minutes, and then you freak people out and put out this 15-minute sound collage, and people are like, "What is this?" I'm like, "This is it. This is
And,
everything that
and
you
then
always
one,
wanted."
speaking of Carnival of Light one more time, and I think I touched on this in a previous episode, but I really wish that Paul would put it out while he's alive, because after he's gone, if whoever tries to put it out, how are we going to know that it's really the real thing? Because it sounds so unorthodox, so unlike anything they ever did, that any listener, even somebody that's well versed in it like us, we're going to be hard pressed to know, is this really Carnival of Light that was recorded January of 1967, or is it just something being put out that they're saying is Carnival of Light? Especially in this modern age of not knowing what's real, and that's only going to get worse, not knowing what's real and what's artificial or whatever. So again, with Carnival of Light, that's the last thing I'll say about that, but it's just interesting there
No, no,
since you mentioned that.
I wanted to extrapolate and add
Yeah,
on to
yeah,
that and say, with Harrison not being there or Lennon, who's to say what Carnival of Light is? Is it a jam? Is it a snippet of a song where they didn't know how to end it and they just rocked out or tripped out for 20
yeah,
minutes or something? So,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but I agree 100% with what you're saying. It's like, if that is to come out, it has to come out while McCartney's still alive, because I don't think Ringo is going to weigh in on anything anymore when it
Yeah,
comes to song composition. I mean, he's going to say, yeah, I wrote a few songs for the Beatles, but I'm not John, I'm not Paul, I'm not George.
yeah,
So it's up to Paul.
yeah. Well,
Or
he's still
do you
trucking,
think
man.
Ringo just literally leaves everything up to Paul, and just at this point he's already signed things that we, in the event of the unthinkable happens, it's like, nope, put it out, put it out, put it out, put it out.
Yeah, it's a good question. I imagine their friendship runs very deep, and there are certain things that Ringo doesn't have any claim to, such as certain songwriting and things. But uh, I imagine Paul probably runs stuff by Ringo. Ringo's a part of the legacy as well. And boy, that guy's not slowing down. He's touring with his current iteration of the All Star Band again as we speak. He's 82. He'll be 80. He'll be 83 in July.
Oh my God.
So he's, yeah, not
Don't
slowing
think
down.
he's playing drums anymore, but he doesn't have to.
Oh no, 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 no.
So I guess, we've heard this scratch demo, I guess. Is there something that you heard in it that you thought they would do differently, 25, 30 years later, that they're holding back, other than sound quality? Because I don't think that
Yeah.
the song fragment itself was strong enough to stand on its own, so it does need augmentation. I think McCartney's got to put a bridge. I think he's got to put in whatever was recorded with Jeff Lynne with Harrison. I think you got to put that in, or I don't want to be sacrilegious, but you got to get a Harrison guitar line or a guide vocal from another song and put it in. And I think McCartney could construct something from the Lennon demo with the recordings done with Harrison and himself, either with he's working with Jeff Lynne. I wouldn't be offended. I don't think you would be offended if they brought in Giles Martin.
Oh, Giles would be great. I was going to say before, Jeff Lynne, I have nothing against him or his work, but it also doesn't really do anything for me. There's something a little glossy about it. Um, so Giles Martin, I'm all for him taking the reins because he's already proven himself with his work on the Love Show soundtrack and all these sort of remixed, remastered releases over the past 10 years. He's been great. And I've seen videos of him over the past 5 years on YouTube where he's talking about this very technology already, um, that's already available to him. So for the AI, yeah, I'm wondering too about this because there's already been separate people that have been posting things online. Like somebody took like a McCartney song from 2013 or something when he was already like 70, let's
Right.
say. Uh, and they like AI'd his voice so that he sounded like young Paul. So I'm wondering again how AI is going to fit into this in a way that's not already the technology they currently have, which is already impressive and good. They already have impressive and good modern technology, which is not necessarily AI. So that your question is a good one, and that's part of the suspense, you know. And his statement that I read a few minutes ago just sort of adds to the mystery because all he said was nothing is synthetically. I kind of want to just a single statement. I'm not going to read the whole thing again. I just
Sure.
want to see that statement again. To be clear, nothing has been artificially or synthetically created. It's all real, and we all play on it. Uh, uh, and then he speaks about cleaning up existing recordings. So how AI fits in, I don't know. But I just had I'm wondering, like, it kind of reminds me of like the de-aging process of the voice. I wonder if that'll be a factor. It's kind of like in the Marvel movies when they de-aged Robert Downey Jr. to look like the 1980s version of Robert Downey Jr. when he was having the flashback scene,
Right.
like like an audio equivalent of that, which to me would be cheating a little, but I don't
But I
know.
mean, but to sorry to interrupt, but to
No, yeah, I was
piggyback
done.
on that, I think if they already did that with Lennon's demo for Real Love, they're gonna do that again with this song because, and I'll tell you why, because it's something you just mentioned a few minutes ago, which is, if they're worried about, if they want the Rock'em Sock'em that shoot up the charts number one, sorry, it's 2023 with the way the pop charts are. Unless you're already an established artist, or unless you're freaking Whitney Houston, you just a ballad doesn't shoot up unless, I think it would be cool if they kind of did what they did with Free as a Bird, where you can have peaks and valleys, a slow section, and who knows what they tried to do with Harrison. And then you've still got McCartney. So you can have
Yeah.
McCartney do a bridge where it just goes off in this other direction. And then the rest of the song, it could be, a building, building, building song. And then if Paul is saying he feels like chorus is great, we can just cut and paste the chorus 3 times. And then the verse, if he's saying there's only one good verse, John could sing the first verse. And I don't know what Harrison did in the 90s. We don't know that yet, but Paul could do the second verse. And you could have a Harrison guitar solo. You can have
Yeah.
Ringo do something. I mean, Ringo could even do a verse. I think at this point, I'm sorry to say, folks, but Ringo deserves a verse on a Beatles single from 2023. How do you feel about that, John?
Yeah, I would say either that or some some other clear trademark. Oh, that Ringo, like how we started the show, right? Whether it's one of his fills or Or maybe at the end, as the song fades out, he could be like "peace and love" or
At
"good
the
night."
end, he could do his famous quote. He's like,
Yeah, yeah.
from what is it from 68 or 69, where he's it's something like, "Yeah, it's a bloody double album, but I wanted to have two albums, the White Album and the Whiter Album."
Lots of information on a double album, and then and then they cut to Paul. I'm not a great one for that. Maybe it was too many. It was great. It sold. It's the bloody Beatles White Album. Shut up.
Exactly, exactly. Nobody's gonna touch that. All right. Well, we got about 5, 6 minutes left here, and let's just go. I can go first, or you can go first. I'd like to hear, what do you hope comes from releasing this song?
Well, just closure for Paul and Ringo if that's what they seek. Maybe getting some just the attention to get more, and that's part of the marketing aspect of it, is to get more people to catch their ear. Oh, the Beatles, younger people who might not care or know very much about them, to hook them in and get them to dive into oh, they were a big deal. Okay, this song sounds all right. Let me check out the rest. So, I mean, from a marketing or from a legacy standpoint, I guess it's serving some purposes. From a listener standpoint of us, people like us, we already know, we've already heard the demo, we've heard the fan created Beatlesque version. Uh, it's just going to be a novelty piece. I mean, for the most part, and I write about that, and I have a single short paragraph about that in my book. I don't spend very much time on the "Free as a Bird We'll Love." I just say something to the effect of, if it brings them comfort and closure, because for them, having John ripped from their lives like that in that violent, horrible way had to be so scarring. So for them to go back and to listen to those tapes and create something beautiful with John kind of there,
Mm-hmm.
had to be have some emotional closure aspect for the Beatles and for them, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the more, more power to them, and I bless their efforts.
Right.
Uh, but for us, for listeners, it's just a curious novelty. It's not part. I don't consider it part of their main body of work per se. It's just some of these factors, like we discussed, like the need to prolong the legacy, and some of the marketing is kind of behind this to a certain degree. It's just, I'm not saying I'm uncomfortable with it. It's just the fact of reality that it's behind it. So, so I don't have mixed feelings. I'm mostly like 80-20 positive feelings about it, I guess. So I have no problem with it. So that's
Very
basically it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was just gonna say, I guess my initial hope when I heard about it, because I keep coming back to this being a part of something larger, I was thinking, oh, maybe there's gonna be this grand re-release of the anthology albums, and then maybe this would be the lead-off track on a new remastered anthology 3. And then I thought, they're not interested in putting that much time. They barely had anything involved with Get Back, and I think the legacy of Get Back was Yoko Ono did not break up the Beatles. In fact, she was just kind of there, and that got put to bed emphatically now and forever.
It's great.
So that is behind them, and Paul got to release his own version of Let It Be, and this is just the ultimate footnote, and we're just gonna have to wait and see. I'm just excited for the whole build up, and I think it's gonna be fun. So as we wrap it up here, I want to let the folks know that not only is John an amazing writer and of course a Beatles fan, but he is also part of a great band called Real Topeka People. And how many albums have you guys put out? How much
Well,
music is out there?
it's long story short, there's enough in the archive, because we were a band that recorded at home basically. It was like a bowling night once a week for 3 years. So there's like enough out there to make like 28 albums,
Jesus
and
Christ, man.
yeah, and like 18 of them are already out. And just go to Bandcamp. It's Real Topeka People, which is a name we've took from the great movie Almost Famous. If you remember the scene where they're in Topeka, Kansas, and this van of teenagers rolls up. Hey, you're Russell Hammond from Stillwater. Hey, you want to party with us? We're just Real Topeka People, man. Anyway, that movie, we love that movie a lot, so we just took the name. We're not from Kansas. We were from Baltimore, so whatever. But yeah, great music. Just like classic rock vibes, but it's also got a modern feel to it as well. I dropped a lot of samples are in there and loops and
Oh yeah,
things.
it's great
So
stuff. So as we're
thanks.
getting ready to roll out of here, I wanted to say, I believe the song title is "Gonna Die Trying." You guys are gonna hear it first now over the credits. Please stick around to the end if you liked what future Eric did in the beginning for the intro montage. I think you'll like what future Eric is going to do for the end credits here. So as we wrap it up, just want to say thank you so much, John, for being here, because this was kind of just sprung on you here. It was a thing of the moment because we did not expect this to happen. This is
Yeah,
not really an episode of the show. This is just a special presentation with us talking about the Beatles
it's
because, oh
great.
my God, we're going to get a new Beatles song. So,
It's always a pleasure, and thanks for the invite. And anytime something significant happens in the Beatles panorama, there, feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to do this. I'm sure eventually, if we'll have a Ringo honoring Ringo show for his departure, et cetera, et cetera. So there's things for us to talk about in the moving forward here. So
no problem, man. Well, best of luck with the book, best of luck with the band, and have a
thanks.
hell of a great weekend, man. Thank you so much.
Thank
You
you,
rock
Eric.
it.
All right, you too. Thank you,
All right,
brother.
goodbye now.
All right.